Hey guys, it's been a minute since I posted a YouTube video, but that's completely my fault. Life has just been lifing, but I have some wisdom. At times we get caught up in the comfortability of life, distractions, and loving life how it's being presented in a way, becoming part of your environment and knowing that you have this hunger for spiritual evolution, you have this hunger for doing better, you have this hunger for change, and you are just merging, or you're in two different worlds where person you were before you decided, hey, I'm woke, I'm up now, So I feel like with having two sides of ourselves and one that is merging onto trying to be that better person and trying to get through the challenges of life, it can be overwhelming sometimes because we can get caught up in just trying to live in the moment, and that is okay, Sometimes life get real. Sometimes life get really real to the point where you have to sit back and be lonely and reflect on certain actions and life as it is, you feel me? So it's just all of a matter of finding balance between that, finding duality of balancing your past self and your upcoming version of yourself, and slowly shedding those layers of that past self and pushing and merging onto becoming that present self. And I feel like most of that is just a mindset switch, a perception switch, and also switching dimensions, you feel me? And I kind of learned this off of Von Cut. Some of the words that he said really marinated in my head about watching your thoughts, watching your actions, being the person that is in a third perspective, being the higher self viewing, yes, you in this physical realm, your emotions that is attached to it, your thoughts that's attached to it, the actions that, like the many outcomes that your brain can think of, like just be the observer of all that. And I learned that in a sense of how I can detach from reality, because like you said, it's just a game. It's if you really look at it, it's just a game, and you're just the person playing it. You create your own reality inside that game. And that really stuck to me because day by day I would sit here and I will be lonely. Life, like I said, life sometimes. And I will sit there and I'll be dwelling in my headspace, dwelling in what I'm going through because, like I said, life. But I will sit there and I'll continue to dwell on those things that doesn't serve me no good if I continue to dwell on it. But sit there and see how that situation affect my thought process, my thought pattern, and figure out how my thought pattern affect myself consciously, well, subconsciously. And sometimes whenever I do reflect that deeply, I get caught up into patterns. I'm seeing myself, or you can see yourself getting caught into patterns and certain things that you do that is not good for you, like going back and smoking, because yes, we all mess up. But like I said, life gets really hard sometimes, and sometimes we end up coping with things that we are familiar with, and we forget that the whole point of experiencing life and experiencing the life that is around you is the pain, the suffering that will push you to be better, the stress. Like, there's a such thing as good stress, there's a such thing as bad stress, but when you really think about it, stress is just stress. And sometimes that can push you to becoming and wanting to do better instead of just transmuting that stress energy into something else that will make you possibly overthink and stress even more and not really handling that situation right then and there. You can transmute that into like, okay, boom, I can journal. Okay, boom, I can sit there and I can reflect why and what part of me what emotion and what part of this energy is coming from me as to why I feel that way. And sometimes, life can life hard than usual, so therefore the only thing you have left is to just release everything that is being built up in your body, because like I said, stress is beautiful. You feel me? Stress, it helps if you in the right way. If you release it in the right way, if you release stress in the good way, it can be beautiful. But it's all a matter of what you do to transmute that. And I feel like I got caught up into a season where I wouldn't transmute that energy into something positive, and then boom, I get caught back up into my cycles of me wanting to evolve. And I feel like as though when I get in those spaces, when I get in those headspaces, when I get into the emotional part about myself, and even you, when you get into that emotional part about yourself, you tend to go back to, like I said, what's familiar, and then you get caught up, you get stuck. And sometimes we get stuck, we get stuck to the point where it's like, damn, I effed up. But it's like, instead of dwelling on the part that you effed up, what is the reason why you're being brought back to that same situation that you're trying to work out of? What is something that you're not learning from that area that can possibly help you build and become what you are trying to be? And like I said, there's no perfect. There's always healing, there's always evolution, there's always growing. We always grow, we're always progressing every single day. But when we get stuck in those stages, when we get stuck in those emotions, when we get stuck in those feelings, we really have to sit back and take the time out to really go in and ask yourself, can really get answers is within yourself, because we may feel like we don't have all the answers, and that's why we feel stuck. So therefore we go and we vent, we get answers from other people, but you don't just take the time out and reflect and sit back and be like, oh, the answers within myself. All I gotta do is just tap within. Know thyself. That's why it's so important to know thyself. And through all this, I just found out, like, points of me being in the same cycle of me feeling stuck. While I'm in the cycle of feeling stuck, I'm learning more. So it's like, don't beat yourself up for going back to your own vomit sometimes. Don't be so stuck to the point where he's like, I can't pull myself out of what I've been trying to get out of for the longest. Learn your triggers. Learn what triggered you to be in that. Learn, reflect on the patterns, reflect on certain habits that you sometimes recycle, and then boom, you're coping in a different way. You feel me? So it's just all the matter of just really taking time out and going in there to understand who you are. And when you understand yourself, when you know thyself, then you will know everybody else around you. Everybody else become reflections of yourself. And like, I see that, and it's like, I took time out to really work on myself, and not purposely, but everything is in alignment. There's no perfect time. So whatever is happening right now is happening on your own good, because time does not exist. Whatever is happening is because it's need to happen. So whatever you're going through, whatever stuck feeling you may feel, is happening because there's something you probably need to learn from that. There's something that you need to grow from that. There's something there's roots that's still in the ground that you need to pull and see. You feel me? So you can be prepared for whatever season that may come next for you. Whatever good version that you're trying to see yourself in the future, let yourself learn through certain seasons so you can be prepared. So you could be prepared for whatever your higher self has for you, or God has for you in the future. Because I like to think of my higher self as my future self, what I expect myself to be in the future, not on no egotistical standpoint, but what I see myself as being complete. That's why I say higher self. So stay grounded. When you feel stuck, reflect. You know, try not to let your emotions get all out of place and here and there and there and there and back and forth, because that creates illusions. You feel me? The more we dwell on that specific emotions, the more it manifests and it becomes bigger, and then boom, there goes illusions, and there goes overthinking, there goes anxiety. Anxiety is doing this and that and running because it can't settle, it can't sit down, and all at the same time it's creating illusions, it's creating possible outcomes that doesn't even exist. So it's like, stay grounded. Whenever we sit there and we have those illusions that is blinding us from us staying grounded and blinding us and like literally siphon our energy. Whenever you overthink, or whenever you feel this type of emotion, or whenever you dwell on things that you can't control, the more and more that thought process, the more and more of that siphons the energy out of you. You will literally feel drained because you're sitting there dwelling on the things that you can't change, the things that you can't control. So it's so important to not let overthinking get too crowded, get too crazy, because we will constantly feel stuck in that, and we'll constantly create illusions, and then boom, we're making impulsive decisions because we're reacting out of emotion, because we didn't take the time to think, to go inwards to get the answer. So realistically, it's just all about grounding yourself, and grounding yourself in multiple ways: praying, talking to yourself, going in, journaling, meditation. There's a lot of ways you can go in. So that's all I have. So